Did you know that the N Physical Style Junior has a 12k multiplier of 160%, the highest in the game, that the Book of War used to be a paid item, or that there's literally an SR card that buffs the enemies? Hi, I'm Ploof, and this video is the compilation of the years of research I did making content about the hit mobile game Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle. More than 100 facts about Dokkan that will range from minor well-known facts to pretty obscure things you probably didn't know or even think of. So enjoy. If you didn't know, they actually lowered the rates of the banners during the first year anniversary on Global. A common misconception is that they lowered the rates of the anniversary banners, knowing that people would summon no matter what for Gogeta, since he was simply the best unit in the game and by far. But that would have been extremely shady, and honestly, borderline illegal. What they actually did was lower the rates across all banners, and this happened 3 weeks after the initial release of the anniversary banners. So it wasn't as bad, but it was still extremely shady, because as far as I know, they didn't announce anything. This is something that the community figured out themselves thanks to data miners. Did you know that Global held a legendary campaign during their second year anniversary where people could vote for the next character they wanted to see as an LR? The winner was obviously Vegito Blue, but the interesting part about that list is that most of those characters actually got their LR in the following years. Did you know that the N Physical Style Junior has a 12k multiplier of 160%, the highest in the game, a 12k multiplier that very few units have, only shared among the best cards, the cream of the crop, the elites? This is actually a pretty well known fact, and I'm sure you've heard of it. But 20% for Gogeta and Omega Shenron, first released on Global during the first ever shared celebration across both versions, they didn't have any leader skills. This was because the update that introduced the category mechanic into the game wasn't out yet on Global. I guess their Global team was small or something, but yeah, they just released the characters with to-be-released leader skills, which was just absolutely crazy, especially since Gogeta and Omega had sub-leader skills, so they could have at least been released with their sub-leader skills. But I guess that would have been too complicated to do. Like, this whole thing was just a mess. The update released like 2 months later on Global, so for almost 3 months, some of the most anticipated and hyped cards in the game just had no leader skills. Truly one of Global's biggest shafts. Fun fact, but Physical Super Vegito had his card art made way before his initial release, like you can see in this trailer that released back in 2015 when the game first released on Global. That trailer also released 2 months before the release of the first ever Dokkan Fest on JP, Strength Broly, who was actually also featured in the trailer. Did you know that Fat Boo's gimmick used to be that he had a 12k multiplier of 150%? Trust me bro, just see, all the TUR Fat Boos in the game that aren't exchange units have a 12k multiplier of 150%. And I'm saying this was a gimmick because in the earlier days of Dokkan, units didn't have 12k multipliers that high. Even Dokkan Fest had key multipliers of like 150% maximum. Before the release of Super Gogeta, Physical Fat Boo was the only unit in the game to have a 12k multiplier of 150%. Like even Dokkan Fest Physical Kid Boo, who came almost 6 months later, only had a 12k multiplier of 140%. Devilman has a 1% chance of pretty much killing anything in the game. This is why the guy is banned from multiple events, to stop players from cheesing those events with him, which in my opinion is just not fair. Like, if you are willing and able to pull Devilman's 1% killing ability to win a hard event stage, like bro, that win is deserved, at least in my books. Did you know that LR Goku and Frieza used to have some sort of KO screen? I'm 90% sure this wasn't intended and probably just a bug, but yeah, if you killed an enemy with them, the last few frames of their super attack would play back just like a KO screen, which was cool for sure. Physical Super Saiyan Gotenks slightly bends over when he launches an additional super attack. I don't know if you can see it, maybe if I slow it down or something, but yeah, he clearly rotates clockwise on his additional super attack. To me, that's clearly a bug, but I'm not sure if they fixed it or not. If someone has the time to try it out in game, feel free to let us know in the comments down below. As you probably already know, the 10th year anniversary came with a tons of leaks, and it started with the Memorial Stone, which they accidentally left in the Countdown Celebrations data download, which honestly wasn't that bad of a leak since we couldn't really tell what was going to be used for, unlike what they left in the next data download, where they left some of Gogeta's assets, including the medals from his upcoming Dokkan event, so we now knew he was going to be the Dokkan Fest LR for the second part of the anniversary, before the anniversary even began. Like, it was crazy. They then leaked LR AGL Bardock the next month in one of the anniversary trailers. You could clearly see his card art, and it was very easy to piece things together and figure out that this was going to be the LR awakening of the story event free-to-play Bardock. But honestly, I don't know if this was actually a mistake because of some changes in their schedule with the sync, or that they just didn't care at all. Honestly, Who knows? Did you know that when Tech Golden Frieza first came out on JP, he had the wrong coloring? Look at his arms and legs. They're supposed to be purple, but instead, they were gold. Honestly, I'm not surprised. I would have probably made a similar mistake at the time if I didn't pay attention. On Strength Rose's initial banner, the image of the banner showed the TOR of Super Saiyan 3 Broly instead of his SSR, which, as you would imagine, was very misleading. So they refounded all players who summoned on the banner while Broly was displayed incorrectly, and also gave an additional 5 stones to all players as an extra compensation. Rose's banner was also bugged on Global. On the featured units tab, the sprite of Text % Blue Goku was shown instead of SR AGL Shenron. I think that's just as bad of an error as the one that happened on JP. But you know what they did on Global? Absolutely nothing. They just fixed it and gave every player 1 Dragon Stone. Now I'm starting to remember why Global players whined so much about the 300 stones situation. Like they messed up so many times on Global, but never gave any type of compensation. Bro, they could have at least refounded the players. I'm sure there's at least one guy who summoned on the banner thinking Super Saiyan Blue Goku was a featured unit. It's crazy to me how much they just didn't care. You've probably heard about Global Shafts and how much the devs didn't care about the global version of the game. But let me show you how much they actually didn't care. Look at this. This was AGL's % Blue Kaioken's banner on Global, which featured Strength's % 3 Vegeta instead of AGL's per Vegito. That was already a huge shaft in itself. But then you look closer and bro, they literally just copy pasted Strength's % 3 Vegeta over AGL's per Vegito. They really didn't care at all. At all, bro. Did you know that on Physical Full Powers Frieza's initial banner, the banner showed the TORs of Super Saiyan 3 Goku and Physical Kid Buu instead of their SSRs? This wasn't fixed on either Global or JP, and they didn't give out any compensation either, because when it happened almost 2 years later on Rose's initial banner, they refounded every player who summoned on the banner. You've probably already heard about the Kefla's 300 stones situation, but do you really know how bad it actually was? Long story short, they messed up something with the servers, and people were saying different characters in the SSR pool. This obviously caused a huge controversy, where people thought Bandai was rigging the rates, that each person had different rates and characters on every banner, and that the update had just revealed what they were truly doing all along. As far as we know, this wasn't the case. This was purely a visual bug, but you can guess it looked bad, really bad. So they had to do something about it. So that's when they made the choice to refound every player the stones they used on the banner, as well as giving every single player 300 stones, even those who didn't summon on the banner, which was, as you would guess, just insane. 300 stones, that was something at the time. But that also sparked another controversy. People thought that it was just too fishy for Bandai to be that generous, you know? Let's not forget that the producer at the time was Toshi, so a lot of people just saw it as hush money, and probably still think to this day that Dokkan was rigging rates and scamming players. But honestly, who knows? Did you know that in the early days of the game, there was a bug where if you switched friends while the game was loading, it was possible to have characters switch super attack animations. For example, you could have Yamcha perform the Soul Punisher. I really wonder how this bug would have looked today on modern characters. Dokkan animations have come a long way, so I can only imagine that this would have looked interesting, to say the least. Not only do the tag LR Kel plus Caulifla not fuse into Kefla, Kel's crit passive is actually bugged. You see, her first super attack is supposed to be a guaranteed crit, but for some reason it just doesn't when it's a Dokkan attack, which I'm pretty sure is not intended, and is, in my opinion, a pretty massive bug. Kel's first super attack does just so much more damage than her other super attacks, so if it doesn't crit, that's a lot of damage you're missing. So hopefully they get that sorted out by the time you're watching this, if they haven't already. Did you know that there's a Kimono 18 card that was given out as a New Year Logan bonus reward to celebrate the New Year 2018? This has to be one of the best looking card art in the game, and very unfortunate that we might never be able to obtain it again. Did you know that Dokkan used to have an insta-kill bug, where you could somehow activate 2 active skills at the same time and just one-shot any boss in the game? But unlike the airplane bug, this wasn't something you could abuse anytime you wanted. You actually needed a lot of different things to go your way to be able to exploit that bug. The first active skill had to be an active skill that does damage, and the second active skill had to have its conditions met while you activate the first character's active skill. So the second active skill had to have some sort of HP condition. So that meant you had to find a way to lose or get HP while activating the first active skill. Hence why that bug was mainly used with the Boos, since they had a lot of HP regeneration, either through their passives or links. So yeah, that meant that unfortunately you couldn't really use that bug to beat something like the punch bag event, since you couldn't lose HP there. And honestly, I don't even know if this bug has been patched yet. It wouldn't even surprise me if it's still in game, since not too long ago some guy found a way to exploit that bug even further and have a standby character be your slot 1, 2 and 3 tank. Like, you can imagine how broken that can be, knowing that standby forms are some of the tankiest units in the game. Now let's go back to 2021 with the New Year step up banner on global. I remember players being very hype about this banner since it featured Strength UI Goku, and it was leaked a couple of months prior that one of the anniversary headliners was going to be a new MUI Goku of some sort, which meant that the LR Strength UI Goku was probably going to be that new UI Goku's best linked partner. Well, at least that's what I thought. But Bandai had to mess it up by making UI Goku only obtainable on the last step as the slot 10 guaranteed featured unit. You couldn't get him in any other slot, let alone any other step, so his rates were severely reduced, which wasn't what was advertised. So they had no choice but to refund every player the stones they use on the banner, as well as an additional 10 stones as extra compensation. This was actually pretty huge, especially if you had 600 stones saved up. It meant you did all of the steps and rotations of that banner essentially for free, and you could just redo them again since they resetted all of the steps on the banner. Which was exactly what I did, since that banner was just so valuable for me. I actually just found an old screenshot from that time, and they actually gave me back 700 stones, meaning I did 2 additional multis after the rotations. I guess that banner was really that good. Did you know that when LR Tech Broly first dropped on global, he had a voiceless active skill, which at the time was kind of excusable, or could have been excusable? Like, okay, it's a global first, there's maybe some excuse to why they couldn't give him a voiced active skill, but the problem here is that when he came to JP, he had a voiced active skill, and that it took them almost 2 years to give him a voice on global. 2 years, bro. That's just like crazy. Like, how, bro? How? 2 years to just give a character a voiced active skill, and literally his voiced active skill is just him like screaming. Like, like that's just crazy. Like, they didn't care at all about global players. At all, bro. When LR Strength UI Goku came to global, the medals displayed in the news to Dokkan Awaken his SSR were wrong. It displayed the medals of Ageless % Blue Kai Goku, when it should have displayed Strength % Blue Kai Goku's medal. It was fixed quickly, but as far as I remember, they didn't give us any sort of compensation, which was okay, I guess. About Strength UI Goku, his easy event was apparently bugged on global. He was just like a regular strength type unit instead of being like super strength, making his event slightly easier to beat. Did you know that at some point in time, Dokkan had a crossover campaign with Arale? Yes, they dropped a banner with a bunch of cards from Dr. Slump, and Arale even had her own Dokkan event OST, an absolute fire OST by the way, a certified classic. About 2 or 3 weeks before the release of Physical Super Vegito on global, they accidentally updated Ageless Super Vegito's Dokkan event, and you could now farm glitched copies of the SSR Strength Vegito that came with Physical Super Vegito's updated Dokkan event. Those copies had no image and couldn't be used for anything other than leveling up the super attacks of the other Vegitos, which was actually perfect at the time since it meant that LR Strength Vegito Blue's super attack was now farmable earlier than expected. Did you know that on JP, there used to be some sort of glitch Piccolo friend in the 3rd stage of the Dragon Ball History event? I honestly have no idea how that happened and couldn't find more about it, but from what I remember, people barely talked about it at the time since he was only available in that specific stage of the Dragon Ball History event, a stage that most people had already beaten. But I do remember people speculating that this was some sort of dev unit or some modded unit. Honestly, who knows? Did you know that JP had some bugged cards back in 2018? Something that I found out scripting out my history videos. When Physical Bird Ghost first awakened on JP, the second part of his passive used to only give him 3% attack and defense, instead of an additional 3% attack and defense per key spheres obtained, which was, as you can probably guess, a huge mistake. Like, that's just crazy. The difference between just 3% at the start of turn to 3% per key spheres obtained is absolutely huge. Like, he was a completely different card with that bug, but thankfully they resolved the issue quickly and gave every player 1 Dragonstone. Not even like 2 months later, the Physical Free Play Middle Cooler was also bugged on release. The healing part of his passive didn't activate on normal attacks, which was also pretty huge since it left a lot of HP out of the table. Like, those normal attacks could heal you a decent amount of HP, especially with like a crit. Did you know that there used to be a time where you could actually quote unquote hack the account of another Dokkan player by having their name ID? And if I remember it correctly, an idea of what their bugs looked like the most recent units they pulled. You could generally just open a ticket on the behalf of the player, claiming that you lost access to your account, like their account, and Bandai would generally just give you their account. Like, it was crazy. Like, didn't Bandai think for a second that there's players making content about their game, and that if it were that simple for someone to recover an account, that those content creators would be like targets? Which is exactly what happened to Live in Ichigo. Someone stole his account that way and apparently deleted all of his ultra rares. Like, what kind of hater do you have to be to do something like that? Like, that's just crazy to me.
So, pretty much what's going on lately is accounts are in jeopardy of being stolen, mine included. This is the second time my account has been stolen from me. Whether, it's kind of ridiculous how easily it's been happening.
Thankfully, there was ironically only one way to recover your account from something like that, and it was to have some sort of payment history within the game, aka having bought stones at some point in time with that account. So Living Ichigo was able to recover his account and get all of his LRs restored, but I remember this whole situation scaring a lot of players back then, because even when I first started the game back in 2018, some players were still masking their players' names and IDs when posting like in-game screenshots online. Like, this whole thing really scared players. And that's probably also why Dokkan ditched like the whole transfer code system. Because yeah, if you didn't know, back in the days when you created a Dokkan account, you had like a transfer code that you could then use to like recover your account. LR Vegito Blue is the only unit in the game to have been changed twice because of the outrage of people. The first time was before he was about to release. He had the over in a flash key link, but due to players' complaints, they changed it to Prepared for Battle. And if you're wondering why Prepared for Battle was the better key link, it's because the Potara team had barely any over in a flash units. Prepared for Battle was a way more common link there. So Tech Vegito Blue was used in the Realm of Gods team and LR Strength Vegito Blue in the Potara team. The second time this guy got buffed before release was when they first announced his Easier. Bro, that Easier was just so trash. His original Easier passive gave him just way too much ki, while only giving him an additional 30% chance of flushing an additional spear attack. And they barely like increased his stats, so it was almost impossible to hit his 12 ki and stack with him, which was what you wanted to do with that Vegito Blue stack defense. I still remember people speculating that it was generally just better to not fully easy him, just take the first 2 steps of his easier for the super attack level and not get his upgraded passive, which would stop you from hitting his 12 ki super. That was just crazy. Thankfully, thanks to the players' outrage, they buffed him before release, giving him more stats in his passive and bumping his super attack chance from 30% to 50%. Like, sure, he still wasn't as good as people hoped for, since we all expected him to stack defense on his 18 ki super, but yeah, he was now way better than what they initially showed us. You've probably heard how broken Super Gogeta was on release, but do you just know how broken he was? Like, when people say that Gogeta was probably a mistake, they're not kidding. This guy was an absolute monster, and it's not just because of his leader skill. Like, sure, he had the best leader skill in the game, by far, but that wasn't all. He was the only unit in the game with an immense damage multiplier, the best damage multiplier in the game. He had an insane link set for the time, being one of the very few units to have both Prepared for Battle and Over in a Flash, the 2 best key links of the time. He also was the TUR with the highest key multiplier in the game, and I could still keep going. Like, this guy was just crazy, bro. Did you know that Physical Super Sentry Gotenks was buffed before release? His 12 ki super was initially supposed to sacrifice 7% HP on super, and his buffs were not as good at the start of turn. Obviously people were mad, like he was already a glass cannon, and arguably worse than his tech counterpart, a unit that came a year before him. So yeah, they listened to the players and buffed him before release, turning him into one of the strongest Neo Gods leaders of that year. If you didn't know, the first version of the Friend Summon banner didn't even have Hercule status. Actually, it didn't even have an SR character. The banner only featured R characters. And if you're wondering which one was the best, it was probably Piccolo because of the region links bug. Outside of the first year anniversary, their 3rd year anniversary was the driest anniversary ever. It only gave 200 stones in total and barely had any events. Like, bro, the celebration had probably the worst part 2 of any anniversary. All we got was some rehashed legendary summon banners, a free-to-play Easy, and I guess 5 new free-to-play units. I think Toshi left the game shortly after, but I don't know if he got fired because of how whack that anniversary was, or the anniversary was whack because he was about to leave. I guess we'll never know. Did you know that in the World Tournament field, the character who picked the lowest number will move first, and the character who picked the highest number will move last? I for the longest time thought that this this was completely random. So I was actually surprised to learn that this was based on the numbers you and your opponents chose, which is interesting and might actually save you some time in your next World Tournament grind. Did you know that some players were able to get the LR Androids Legendary Campaign rewards twice? Which was already crazy since those rewards were just insane. But the crazy part here is that as a compensation, they give every player the rewards again, even those who already got them twice. So those players actually got the rewards thrice. So literally 105 stones, enough HL potential orbs to rainbow 3 characters, and 105 buck space. Just absolute craziness, bro. 105 buck space and 105 stones. Like, bro. Just, this was insane. This was absolutely insane. I'm sure you've all heard how a higher team cost gives you more points in the World Tournament. Well, apparently that's false. According to Lotad, if you don't know him, he's one of those Dokkan sweats, or tryhards, however you want to call them, who actually grinds the World Tournament for that rank 1 spot, and he's succeeded multiple times on global. Like, being rank 1 once is already a big achievement, but doing it multiple times, yeah, that's just crazy. So people were curious about how he was able to do it, so he made a thread on Twitter explaining his strategy. Apparently the enemies you face in the World Tournament are based on your team, meaning if you keep using the same team, you'll always be facing the same type of enemies given roughly the same amount of points. So he actually figured out that if you're already using a strong team with a decent amount of AoE units, you can just reroll the other characters on your team until you find the right combination that will give you the team that faces the enemies offering the most points. Crazy, right? If you're curious, this was the team with the best seed during the 49th World Tournament, and as far as I know, it probably still is. If you didn't know, the World Tournament used to be a lot worse. For example, there was a time where you needed to beat every multiplier one by one during every single World Tournament to unlock the last one. This was just unnecessary and added even more grind to an already grindy event. I'm glad that the last multiplier is now directly unlocked, it just saves so much time. Did you know that there was a point in time where players had to win the World Tournament 100 times just to get one SSR ticket? 100 times. Like, bro, I can't even get my 30 wins nowadays, and you're telling me that people used to run this thing 100 times for a single SSR ticket and with no AoE units? Sure, SSRs are still pretty rare at the time and hard to get, but I wouldn't even do it for an LR guaranteed ticket nowadays, so I respect the dedication players had at the time. Did you know that there were actually some World Tournaments with better rewards than others? For example, the 13th World Tournament gave some sort of Super Saiyan Goku item, which, if I'm not mistaken, was basically a guaranteed LR Super Saiyan Goku figurine directly delivered to your house. Honestly, this was probably worth the grind, since only the top 100 players were rewarded with one of those figurines. I don't know if this was like a limited edition run or something like that, but if it was, yeah, this was probably the only World Tournament ever worth grinding. The second one would probably be the one during the 2nd year anniversary, the 17th World Tournament. Simply because, unlike the previous World Tournaments, that one gave not only more stones than SSR tickets, but also Elder Kais, potential orbs, and a God Stone. Potential orbs and Elder Kais were very rare at the time, and difficult to come by, so the amounts they gave were actually very good. And the God Stone, it gave you a free Dokkan Fest character, which is always good, especially with the EZAs that came the same year, turning some of these characters into absolute monsters. But the crazy part was that this wasn't the only God Stone they gave during that celebration. You also had your typical God Stone given as a login bonus reward, plus the one from the World Tournament. So up until 2024, this was the only celebration ever to give multiple God Stones for free. There's also the 28th World Tournament that happened during the 4th year anniversary. The rewards weren't buffed like the 2nd year anniversary one, but they did bring back the end of Zigoku, who was given as a reward card during the 1st World Tournament, and at the same time gave him a Dokkan Awakening. He wasn't anything crazy, but still a cool trophy card nonetheless. Did you also know that some cards were only available as rewards during specific World Tournaments? Like, those cards are not obtainable anymore. Ajal Ub, who was given as a reward card during the 13th World Tournament on JP and the 11th World Tournament on Global. SR Tech Roshi, who was given as a reward card during the 1st World Tournament on both versions. SR Strength Ub, who was given as a reward card during the 1st World Tournament only on JP. And Int SR Goku was given out as a reward card during the 1st and 28th World Tournaments. Did you know that originally the Baba Shop had a reset time of 24 hours, which was changed to 30 minutes in some update that I couldn't find, but I think it was around the 1st year anniversary. Did you know that there was a point in time when the monotype Baba Shop units had a cost of 100k Baba points, which is just as bad as it sounds, if not worse, because Baba points were way harder to get at the time. If you ever wondered what kind of cards people were rerolling for when the game first released, well, word got out pretty fast at the time that the best card to reroll for 4 was actually SR First Form Frieza. He had a decent leader skill, 15% attack to all types, his super attack effect lowered the enemy's attack, and his passive gave him an unconditional 1500,000 attack, which was very good at the time. He also had the Metamorphosis link, so you could link him up with any Zarbon card and, just like Piccolo and Nell, heal up to 15% HP in a single turn. Because if you didn't know, links that healed you when activated, like Namekian or Metamorphosis, were actually bugged and could be procced up to 3 times within the same turn, making units with those links insanely valuable. Did you know that the Super Saiyan 4's card arts were leaked 2 weeks before the 4th year anniversary on Reddit? I remember seeing their card arts at the time and thinking, wow, those are actually some pretty well made card arts. But I just moved on with my life because, like most people, I assumed they were fake. I was so surprised, but also disappointed when I realized they weren't. I don't know, it felt like those card arts weren't really that great. Same with their super attacks, which were just recycled versions of the Battlefield Goku and Vegeta's super attacks. Well, actually, it was the other way around. If you didn't know, the LR Super Saiyan 4s were made almost a year in advance, which we now know, thanks to Omatsu, that it's the standard, but the thing is, they were apparently way worse than what we actually got. Originally, their passives were something, to say the least. 80% attack for Goku and 80% defense for Vegeta. That's it. Like, that was their passives. Their whole gimmick was that they would rely on the massive buffs they got from their super attacks. Thank God they changed them before release, because this would have easily been the biggest fumble of all time if they didn't. You've probably all heard how cards like Strength Super Gogeta and Agile Super Vegito used to dominate the game during their time, but there's one card who was genuinely insane that nobody's talking about: Strength Super Saiyan Bardock. He not only was the first kind of hype unit the game had to offer, but he also was the best unit in the game. Like, he introduced the 25% attack to all types leader skill, which quickly became the new best leader skill in the game, while also supporting the entire rotation for 15% attack. So not only did he have the best leader skill in the game, but he could also support the entire rotation and link pretty well with most of the best units at the time, who were for the most part Super Saiyan units. So yeah, that guy was just crazy. Did you know that Agile Super Vegito's best linking partner used to be our Oceanus Shenron, since she was AGL, sealed on Super, and shared the Shock and Speed link with him? I don't think I need to explain further why they were good together. They just dominated Dokkan events at the time, turning some of the hardest events like Strength Broly's one into like a complete joke. Broly's Dokkan event stage was one of the hardest events the game has known, like ever. It introduced a pay-to-win mechanic called Rampage, an ability that could only be disabled using one of the new characters that came alongside Broly. That event was legit almost impossible to beat without stuns, and Broly was just so tanky it was ridiculous. He also hit pretty damn hard since defense leader skills were not meta. Fun fact about Rampage, but that ability is basically just a ton of additional defense given to Broly. So people found out that you could just use characters that lower defense to bypass it. One of the best characters to bring into Broly's original Dokkan event was Tech SR Goldo, since he lowered all enemies' defense to 0 for 3 turns after being attacked. Like, he pretty much completely removed Broly's Rampage and more. Like, it was just insane.
Thanks to people on my Twitch stream just now, I figured out the most ultimate strategy how to beat this event. So, I'm not taking any blazing or defense breaking cards that say lower defense. Well, kind of. Wait a second, Livinicio. You have Gildo right there. Why is Gildo on your team? Why, you might ask? This Gildo turned out to be the most broken ass, busted, godly card of all time. You might think I'm crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm going to show you why. Passive skill. Paralysis. Briefly lower all enemies' defense to 0 upon being attacked. Holy crap. You don't understand how ridiculous that is.
As a matter of fact, that passive was so good that SR Goldo could be used on any Dokkan event stage that required you to use a specific set of characters, since you could simply just bypass the special defenses they had. That's crazy. Did you know that Dokkan events used to have a stamina cost of 4D for the Z hard difficulty and 50 for the super difficulty? Like, they were extremely expensive. Like, most people's stamina bars were barely breaking the 100 stamina mark, so you can guess that that just made Strength Broly's Dokkan event even worse. Did you know that people summoned for the first Strength Super Saiyan Trunks mainly because he was the closest thing the game had to a Broly?
Trunks. So we got Super Trunks, the buff Trunks, the Broly looking Trunks.
And yeah, honestly, he does look like Broly. Coming back to the topic of hard events, I'm sure you've heard of how bad Prime Battle events used to be, but do you really know how bad they were, the first ever Prime Battle event was just something else. So just to start off, this event had to be done with Super Strike characters, exclusively Super Strike characters. No free-to-play characters that weren't from a Strike event, and unfortunately, no Dokkan Fest TURs or other summonable units. And bro, just so you know, Strike characters at the time were honestly not that great.
Oh, hell no, man. What the?
Like, they were way past their prime, and train items and awakening medals were still pretty scarce, so most players just used them on their summonable units. No one expected this kind of event to drop out of nowhere, an event where you were forced to use strike characters who essentially sucked and were for the most part not worth the grind if you had a decent chunk of summonable characters. And also, Super Strike events weren't available all the time, so if you missed a specific character that was, for example, very good against Goku's Prime Battle event, you had to wait God knows how long to be able to farm it again. And bro, you had a 1% chance of dropping Goku. 1%. I guess like you were guaranteed one copy on your first run, but good luck farming more after that. That third stage, it costed 50 stamina at the time, which like I said earlier, was pretty much half of your stamina bar if you had like a decent level. And the event was just way too difficult when you take into account the number of times the stage had to be run. You were getting 5 medals most of the time, and you needed 777 medals to awaken Goku into an LR. So this meant you had to run the stage at least 100 times. And that's if you had decent RNG and also, you know, just didn't die in the event. So realistically, it was more like 200 times. So let me break it down for you. You could realistically only run the event about 4 to 6 times a day because of the stamina cost. You had to run the event around 200 times, with each run lasting about 10 to 20 minutes. So if we do the math, that's about 40 minutes to 2 hours of grind every single day for like at least a month or two. For like what? Sure, LR Goku was phenomenal, but was he really like that good to justify that grind? Honestly, I don't know. Did you know that there was a time when strike characters were some of the best units in the game? They were actually must farms because of their leader skills and the fact that you could easily farm their super attacks. Something that wasn't possible for 99% of the cards in the game at the time. Elder Kais didn't exist, and SSR as a whole were almost as rare as LR nowadays. Did you know that strike events used to have a team cost limit of 100? Making units with low team cost is essential at the time, but funnily enough, Strength Gogeta was so broken on release that you could generally just run him alongside another Gogeta friend and just breeze through most strike event stages like they were nothing, with 5 Cybermen on your team. As a matter of fact, team cost was such like a valuable thing at the time that the 2 first April Fool cards exclusively had value just for that reason. I'm not sure if this is true or not, but apparently Strength's percent Vegeta's Dokkan event used to have weird sounds. Just take a look at that. It's probably just Bumble, right? Well, well, at least I hope so, because otherwise that's just weird and creepy, or worse. Fun fact, the highest grossing banners ever in the history of the game are the 5th year anniversary banners, featuring Tech LR Vegito and Strength LR Gogeta, which I guess makes sense. If you were there at the time, this was probably the hypest anniversary of all time. Like, the hype was just insane beyond belief. But the crazy part is that, in my opinion, those were the weakest anniversary units we ever got. Like, they were flashy and everything, but I could tell at the time, just from their kits, that they weren't going to age well. And I don't think they were the best units in the game either, which was a first. This was probably the only anniversary ever where the anniversary units weren't the best units in the game. But even then, I'm not gonna act like they didn't get me. This is the anniversary where I've spent the most amount of money in the game, like ever. I pretty much emptied the tickets in the shop. I'm not proud, but I almost Rainbow Tech Vegito Blue, so at least I didn't get shafted. Did you know that Dokkan had a crossover campaign with One Piece Treasure Cruise at some point, and there's actually a Doflamingo card in game. He was actually a boss in the crossover event, and as far as I know, this is the only time the game ever had a crossover campaign with something that wasn't related to Dragon Ball or Akira Toriyama. Did you know that some of Gotenks cards in the game intentionally misspell his super attack name as Kamehameha? It's a fun little reference to how he mispronounced Kamehameha when he was a kid. Kinda funny. Gohan cards are probably the most fumbled cards in Dokkan. 2 of the biggest fumbles in Dokkan's history are Gohan cards. Beastless Gohan, when Omatsu made everyone think that Beast Gohan was finally coming to Dokkan as a playable card, only for him to not only be an active skill attack, but the active skill attack of one of the worst releases in Dokkan's history. If LR Physical Ultimate Gohan was at least very good, this fumble could have been excusable. But the fact that he wasn't that great was just the biggest middle finger I've seen insane in the history of this game. And the crazy part is that before his release, another Gohan card, LR Gohan, was seen as one of the biggest fumbles in Dokkan's history. Not because he was bad, the guy was actually pretty good on release, because he literally had the worst transforming condition we had ever seen. And I'm pretty sure that this meme referencing his transforming condition is still the most upvoted meme in the Dokkan Battle subreddit, just to show you how bad it actually was. If you've started after a 30-year anniversary, this might sound like a surprise to you, but the Book of War item they give out annually in May, normally during the Goku Day celebration, you know, the one that you can exchange for Goku's family units in the Baba shop? Well, believe it or not, that item actually used to be a premium item that people had to buy with real money, just like the Blue Godstone. If we factor in inflation, it was around like $25 at the time, which with inflation would probably be closer to $35 in today's currency. That's just honestly crazy to think about, like $35, like bro, $35 for like a great ape unit, bro, like who are we kidding here? Like, that's just such a scam. I'm sure you've already heard how the mono 70% type leaders used to be called God's leaders, but do you know why? It's because they were just so good at the time. It's simply because the game went from only key leaders with Gogeta to a 70% buff to all stats. This was for sure the biggest power creep jump in the history of the game, even bigger than Gogeta's first appearance or the 7th year anniversary Great Reset. Like, leader skills went from only giving tricky and a flat stat buff of 3000 attack to tricky and 70% to all stats. It's pretty much like if the 10th year anniversary new leader skills give 270% HP attack and defense to a specific type. Monotype teams would have like instantly became the new meta, which is exactly what happened at the time. Talking about the gods leaders, the mono 100% type leaders were called demigods, because sure, they had bigger stats buffs than the gods leaders, but they didn't give ki, which was and still is very important, hence why they were only seen as half as good as god leaders, so that's why they were called demigods. As for the neo gods, well, this one is pretty self-explanatory. They were better god leaders, hence why they were called neo god leaders. And if you didn't know, neo means new or revived form of, so yeah, it makes sense. Another fun fact: before guaranteed SSRs, Dokkan experimented with different types of payday systems, with one of them being a guaranteed new character per multi-summon. This sounds good on paper, but actually sucked in reality, since a new character could be anything ranging from an R to an SR, and stones were so limited that the chances of you having every R and SR characters in the game were pretty much non-existent, unless you were like a well or had been playing since like day one. Dokkan used to have a lot of Vegeta units back in the early days. Like, they literally did a dual Dokkan Fest of Rose and Vegito Blue 2 years in a row around the same time near the end of the year. Some people may think it's because Vegito Blue is some sort of money printing glitch for Bandai, which could be the case, but what if I told you that the producer of Dokkan used to be Toshi and that his favorite character was literally Vegito Blue? He said it himself in an interview back in 2017.
Definitely my current favorite character would be Vegito Blue from the new Dragon Ball Super series. It's just so cool to see a new form with these characters that you're familiar with and just break another wall and become more powerful.
I don't know if you knew, but you could obtain an Int SR Trunks if you pre-registered for the game. Bro, who would have pre-registered for the not-so-hit mobile game Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle at the time? I wouldn't be surprised if there's not a single player who still has that card now. The ones who did pre-register for the game probably stopped playing at some point. Like, is there even a single player who pre-registered and played Dokkan from day one until today and is still playing the game? Like, that's like, there's just no way. As surprising as this might sound, text percent for Gogeta was actually a pretty controversial release. Yes, text percent for Gogeta actually disappointed a lot of people back when he first got leaked in the global database.
Honestly, I've been waiting so long for this guy, and he's not as good as I was expecting him to be. Not as good. Yes, he's fucking OP, he's amazing, but Super Saiyan 4 Goku is all that and a bag of chips, man.
I guess, I'm gonna be honest, guys. I am a little underwhelmed by Gogeta. He is really good. Gogeta is really, really good, but this is unnecessary. Like, over in a flash, like, I mean, sure, that'll help him, like, link better with, like, you know, Gogeta and Vegito Blue, because the Super Saiyan 4s, you know, without Over in a Flash or Fuse Fighter, they don't fit as well on a hero team like as the hero team used to be previously constructed, you know, with Vegito Blue, Gogeta, Gotenks, you know, etc. I'm just not that impressed with Gogeta's I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
He was probably the most anticipated unit at the time, or honestly one of the most anticipated unit in the whole history of the game. So people expected him to be absolutely crazy, just for them to realize that he was actually not any better than the already existing Super Saiyan 4s, if not possibly worse. Did you know that at some point in time on Global, you could get trained android robots, like for example during the 2016 Christmas celebration. They give half the XP of a Z-Sword, so actually nothing crazy, but it's still funny to see. Like, look at that, bro. Android robots. Just so weird, bro, to see that in game. This is actually a good one, and something that I only found out because Anoji reached out to me on Twitter. Shout out to him. But apparently, back in the day, the community used to speculate which character was coming next using the link tab in game. Just look at this. This was a Reddit post made back in October 2015. But the first ever Super Sentry Goku came to Global in December 2015. So yeah, by pressing on a link, Global players could see in advance which GP cards were already in the game files, so they knew which one had the highest chance of coming next. A cool fact about Strength Super Sentry Goku is that they changed his title from Intergalactic Punch in Power to The Power to Shake the Universe, shortly after his release on Global. On release, the devs cared so little about Global players that they didn't even keep track of the release dates of characters, even though we know, thanks to the internet and goats like Live in Ichigo, that Strength Super Sentry Goku released on December 14, 2015 on Global. But in the game files, he doesn't even have a release date. It's just marked as prior to October 2015, which is factually false. Like, it's crazy, bro. They just didn't care, bro. In 2018, Dokkan released one of the worst April Fool jokes the game has known. Dokyun Battle on JP or Dolly Battle on Global. A dating simulator that featured some very questionable characters. So questionable that we might as well call the event a speedrun to prison, bro. Like, bro. The simulator featured Bra and Pan, who were both 9 and 10 respectively. And the things they were saying in those teasers, I have no idea how is this even legal. It's my pleasure going out with you. Like bro, what?
Oh, hell no! That's hell no! No!
I'll do a fashion show for you when we get back home. Shortly before the release of Physical Super Vegeta on Global, his Dokkan event was actually bugged. I don't even know how they managed to do that, but as far as I know, this bug only happened on Global. Basically, you could farm glitched copies of the free-to-play Vegito. I think they wanted to give players a way to farm the super attack of the free-to-play LR Vegito Blue, but I guess they just messed up somewhere along the way. And yeah, he was obtainable, but he just didn't have any sprite or information. And I'm pretty sure you couldn't even use him in game. He was just like AC fodder, pretty much. Did you know that there was a point in time when TURs were called LRs? This is because the LR icon was data mined before the first ever Dokkan Festival unit, Strength Broly. So people assumed that Dokkan Fest Broly was going to be the first LR. And even though Broly Dokkan awakened right away and was just like a regular TUR, the community just thought that the LR logo wasn't live yet, so they referred to him as LR Broly. Did you know that they used to be so rare the first year that they were introduced that they were for the most part ignored when discussing who the best cards were? Like, it was clear that they gapped the rest of the game, but the problem was that most of them came unfeatured on their initial banners, so your chances of pulling them were extremely low. So low that this was one of the main things that kept player interested in summoning videos. Like, literally some people were only watching summoning videos to see if they pulled an LR or not, because it was just like such a rare thing to see. And this was before the era of private servers, so the only way to actually see an LR in action was to actually pull them.
Pulling LRs back in 2016 when there was only 8 of them, they weren't featured. While it was way more like predatory for sure, like putting them in a banner and not featuring them like that and not having guaranteed SSR is like, it was dog shit from a business standpoint, but from a viewer standpoint and pulling the unit, it was way more special, like infinitely more special. Like LRs were still so rare and there's so few of them. And now there's like, what? We're closing in on 150 or 200 or something like total if you include the free to play ones. So they're not as special anymore. And pulling them, it stopped becoming will Nanogenics or Rhymestyle pull it in this video to you either pull it or they don't watch, because there's just, again, there's no mystery to it.
Did you know the first version of Dokkan Battlefield looked completely different from what we have now? That version also never made it to Global, but it was basically just the Battlefield we know now, except instead of directly choosing a fight and making a team, you had to play some sort of minigame where you dropped characters to try and break the enemy's defenses before being able to start the fight against the boss. The interesting part is that each type had like a different gimmick. For example, AGL type characters moved faster on the board. Fun fact, but AGL Kid Boost team was the first team ever in the history of the game to be able to break 100k HP, which was obviously insane at the time. Crazy to think that we're now able to break the 1 million HP mark with a 10th year anniversary power creep. There's a set of characters that were only obtainable on JP via some V-jump codes. I'm pretty sure that we don't even have the option anymore to put codes in game. So it's safe to say that even if you somehow manage to find one of those V-jump codes, they're just not usable anymore. Talking about codes, there's also this blue Goku that was only obtainable through a code from the Dragon Ball Super Superstar guide. So also a card we'll never be able to obtain. Did you know that there's 2 strike events that never got renewed into Super Strike events? Yes, the strike events for Kibito and Piccolo Jr. Those 2 cards were once available in their own strike events, but those strike events never got renewed, so those cards are just not available anymore, unfortunately. Did you know that the 7th year anniversary was arguably one of Dokkan's biggest meta shift? The power creep jump was so big with the introduction of the 200% leader skills and the new red zone events that 95% of the game got power crept. Cards that were released literally a month or 2 before that anniversary and that were seen as very decent cards on release were now completely useless in that new meta, either because they didn't fit under one of the 2 new 200% leaders or simply because they couldn't hold their own defensively in those new red zone stages. This is also probably why the second part of the 7th year anniversary was such a joke. Releasing 2 new yellow coin LRs without giving them 200% leader skills was just a decision to say the least. Did you know that there's a set of characters that just aren't obtainable anymore in their R forms? Because yes, back in the day, story events used to drop farmable R characters, but once those events got renewed, they were only farmable as SRs, so their R forms are simply not obtainable anymore. Did you know that the original card icon of the TR of the LR Goku in R Rally had Krillin in the background? Which didn't make much sense since the icon of the character is, as far as I know, supposed to match the name of the character, and the card wasn't called Goku and Krillin. It was just a Goku card with Krillin in the background. So this was obviously changed before release to avoid confusion. Did you know that there's a set of cards that were only obtainable during specific world tournaments? AGL Oob, who was given out as a reward card during the 13th World Tournament on JP and the 11th World Tournament on Global, SR Tech Roshi, who was given as a reward during the first World Tournament on both versions, SR Strength Oob, who was given as a reward card during the first World Tournament only on JP, and SR Goku, who was given out as a reward card during the first and 28th World Tournaments. He was also given out as a reward during the $20 million celebration exclusively on Global, so out of these cards, I think this one has the highest chance of making a comeback. Did you know that there's a set of cards who were only obtainable through missions during specific celebrations? Since they weren't farmable from any event, there's currently no way to obtain them. I could see Android 18 Link State coming back if they ever do like another Fighter Z collab, but I think we might never see Yamcha's girlfriend again since Heroes isn't a teen anymore. Like, I guess they could still bring her back if they ever do like a Divers collab, but we can't know for sure. Did you know that there's an Int Blue Goku who was only obtainable as a reward card during the 10 million download celebration? During the holidays, Dokkan liked to release some special guys that were only obtainable during the celebration they came with, mainly by summoning on the carnival banner of that month. We've seen Santa Roshi come back plenty of times, so I could see them bringing back Santa Gohan Goku or Kid Trunks and Mai, but like I said earlier, as of now they're unobtainable and we can't know for sure if they'll ever bring them back. Did you know that Dokkan had a collab with Sandland at some point in time? We even had a Beelzebub card who was given as a low-get bonus reward card to celebrate the movie release of Sandland. Unfortunately, he isn't obtainable anymore and might never be, especially since Toriyama passed away, rest in peace to the GOAT, so this might be the last time we'll ever hear of Sandland. Did you know that the first year anniversary Spirit Bomb Goku used to be called Big Butt Goku? And that's because that's what his name translated to in DBZ space. Big Ass Hope Monkey. I honestly have no idea whether this is true or not, but you could apparently at some point dupe gift box rewards, meaning you could dupe stones. And there's some rumors that the global first LR Strength Broly Legendary banner was legit just a bait to catch players who were exploiting that bug. I even saw like a comment in an old forum of someone saying that a Dokkan creator got banned for using that bug. No idea if that's true or not, but honestly I couldn't find more about it. But many players are convinced that this was a true exploit. And if it is, then yeah, the devs messed up big time with that one. Being able to dupe stone is just like, that's just insane. Now that I actually think about it, this unlocked a very old memory in my mind. I remember speaking to this guy in high school about mobile games back in like 2017, and I forgot how we got there, but I remember him mentioning something about a Dokkan bug and how he had an unlimited amount of stones but then got banned for it. So maybe he actually did use some sort of dupe bug. It's possible, but yeah, I wasn't playing Dokkan at the time, so I don't know. Did you know that Dokkan has a bunch of story events that never came back and you can't even access in the portal of memories? And the unfortunate part is that those events came with farmable characters we may never be able to farm again. The Penguin Village story event with 2 farmable free-to-play units, Kid Goku and Arale, the One Piece crossover campaign with a farmable Super Saiyan Goku, the Resurrection F story event with an SR HL Frieza and an R Police Officer Krillin. Did you know that there's a tech Final Form Frieza that has been removed from the regular SSR summon pool? Probably because of his awakening. Like, he's a Planetamic Saga Frieza that awakens into a golden Frieza from the Resurrection of F movie. So as you would guess, his categories are kind of all over the place. And this is not the first unit actually that they removed from the regular SSR pool. They also removed one of the first original 4 SSRs from the general SSR pool back in the days, but they actually brought him back during the 2021 worldwide celebration and gave him an awakening. So this could potentially happen to that Frieza. Like, they could potentially bring him back, fix his categories, revamp the Resurrection of F story event, and I guess easy him? Honestly, who knows. Back in 2018, they accidentally gave some players a fully maxed UR copy of Tech GT Super Saiyan Vegeta. He was fully leveled and AC 10, which was actually quite a big deal since his super attack wasn't farmable, and Kais were still pretty scarce at the time. This then led to the data miners looking at the game files and finding out about the other Super Saiyan Vegeta who was supposed to come with him. People thought at that time that they were maybe replacements for the Dragon Ball Heroes units, since those cards weren't on Global yet, and nobody knew if they were ever going to. But yeah, Global held an extended maintenance afterwards to resolve the issue, and players were not only expecting to keep their copy of Super Saiyan Vegeta, but also get some sort of big compensation like 300 stones. And if you're a long-time Global player, you can already guess what they did. They took back all of the copies of Vegeta from the players and just gave everyone 25 stones. I hope they at least refounded the potential orbs some players put into that Vegeta card. Otherwise, that's gotta be like a top 10 global shaft. Did you know that there's 2 April Fool's cards that aren't obtainable anymore? The 2017 Cyberman card that was referenced in the main menu screen at the time, and the 2018 Pepe Girls trophy card. That actually wasn't a playable card, and literally just a trophy card. This adult Gotenks trophy card was given out on JP as a free login bonus reward card during multiple hero celebrations, but for some reason, never on Global. Like, they never gave out that card on Global. And now that Heroes isn't a tin anymore, I'm afraid that we Global players will simply never ever get to own a copy of that card. So sad, bro. If you didn't know, there used to be some sort of key multiplier bug in the game, a bug that affected units who had built-in key in their passives, mainly key that they got on super, and it made it so that they would launch higher attack stats than usual when overflowing with key, because that key would in some weird way buff their key multiplier, a bug that was made apparent with the release of LRKL on Caulifla, because they could attack so many times within the turn, and because of the fact that their link set was essentially just filled with key links, well, it broke something within the game. They weren't just having like a higher key multiplier anymore, they were able to launch additional 18 key super attacks, which was just crazy. In a failed attempt to fix LRKL on Caulifla's key multiplier bug, the devs somehow just broke the game. Like, literally. LR started launching additional 18 key super attacks. You could now take damage and die while in a giant ape transformation. Characters' attack stats suddenly displayed like much higher numbers than expected. It was possible to have a 0 HP health bar, and some characters' sprites just completely disappeared during their animations. So yeah, it was like a whole fiasco. All of that because of one unit. One unit started that entire chain reaction. The update 4.14.3 on Global literally stopped you from using super type items. Like, your game would crash if you use a super type item. If I'm not mistaken, it took them almost 2 months to fix the problem. There was legit a notice in game asking players not to use super type items or their game would crash. I have no idea how they got away with that. All I remember is that Dokkan was so dry at the time that I barely played the game while the issue was there, which meant that it would have been the perfect time to try and no items from old Super Bad Road stages. But yeah, you couldn't even do that because like they closed like so many events because of that bug, including Super Battle Road. Like, this has to be one of Global's biggest L's. Not being able to use super type items for almost 2 months is just insane. Absolute craziness.
Hey, excuse me, sir. Yeah, me. Sorry to bug you. Hate to stop your money counting and all that. I was just wondering, when are we not pushing out this global Dokkan battle fix, or what's going on with that?
Can they still buy Dragon Stones and summon?
Well, yeah, I mean, the shop and summon features work fine like normal, but support items are completely gone, and the players have been missing out on a bunch of events for like a week straight, and we haven't done anything yet. I was just...
Hey, can they still buy Dragon Stones and summon?
Yes, they can still buy Dragon Stones and summon.
Okay then.
Back in 2021, a Reddit user by the name of BromanDude made a post showcasing a new bug he found. A bug that would exponentially multiply all of your character's stats and hidden potential abilities, like crit dodge and additionals. And the crazy part about that bug was that it was actually extremely easy to replicate. All you had to do was restart your game while in battle, and then when reconnecting, enable and disable the airplane mode on your phone. Hence why the bug was called the airplane bug. Then boom, once in game, all of your characters were now absolute monsters. As you would guess, that bug took the community by storm, and everyone started using it. I actually used it myself to beat the first 3 stages of the Hercule Nuken event. Like, I'm sorry bro, but that event was just pure BS. I genuinely have no regrets doing that. Take for example the Corded Body and Mind Legendary Goku event mission. Another mission that was complete BS at the time, and that people gladly used the airplane bug to beat. Well, that mission now is like a complete joke, as it should be. But that Nuken event, still BS. Even though it came like 3 years before that mission. But yeah, people didn't use that bug to beat some missions. They also used it to do some crazy stuff like killing V-Pan or just juicing up some meme characters to oblivion. But all of that came at a cost. Shortly after the discovery of the airplane bug, the devs put a notice in the news saying that anyone who used that bug would have their account permanently banned. This made players very mad. The Dokkan subreddit was literally flooded with cope following that announcement. The community went through the 5 stages of grief in the span of like 3 days. It was just so crazy. Even big Dokkan YouTubers like Nano used the bug on video, and he did it on his main global account. But from what I can remember, he didn't actually finish the event, so he assumed he would be safe. But even he wasn't immune. Like I said, the whole community went through the 5 stages of grief, and the last stage was acceptance. Nano and many others, including me, had already accepted their fate.
Said I was doing the video for literal educational purposes and to hopes of signal boosting it and getting Bandai to notice it and fix it please. And so there it is. But if my global goes down for it, it is what it is. A lot of y'all have tagged me. Is your global gonna get banned, Nano? You're bye-bye your global. It is what it is if it happens. You know what I mean? Stay tuned, I guess. Maybe you'll see a video coming out where I'm like, I got banned. Who knows?
Thankfully, in the end, they actually didn't ban anyone, or at least not anyone who actually used the airplane bug. I'm not sure if this is true, but apparently there were much worse bugs in the game at the time, like a bug that allowed you to duplicate stones. I've personally never seen it in action, so it was probably just fake news or people trying to spread like rumors, but if it were true, I guess it was well kept, and those players were the players that probably got banned at the time. Dokkan devs threatened to ban players multiple times through the history of the game, and one of those instances was back in December 2021, with the glitched Kaioken Goku in the first global burst mode. The friend LR Kaioken Goku's stats were glitched, like he had a 1 million plus based attack stat, meaning he could pretty much one-shot anything in the game, including achieving the highest burst mode score quite easily. As you would guess, as soon as the devs were made aware of that bug, they put a notice in the news saying that all players who used the glitched LR Goku friend were going to have their accounts suspended, which is absolutely ridiculous. Like, it's not like the airplane bug where you had to do a specific like set of things to trigger the bug. You literally just picked a unit that was already available in game. This could have easily been done by mistake. How could the players have guessed that the unit was glitched? It's not like you check every friend character's stats before using them. I legit just picked the friendly unit with the highest potential system. Bro, like I don't analyze them. So yeah, players were furious. But since they didn't ban players for using the airplane bug, most people kept their cool. And yeah, in the end, they didn't ban anyone. Did you know that the card art of the TOR of the Worldwide Namek Saga LR Person Goku was actually different between both versions? The one on Global is the one we currently have, where all the shading of the card is blue. But on JP, they had a different version where Goku had his regular colors. I don't even know how they even managed to do that, but let me know which one you prefer in the comments down below. I personally prefer the one we had on Global. The blue shading just hits different. Super Sentry Gotenks Sprite used to have a dislocated right foot. Well, at least I think so. I'm not sure if my memory is playing tricks on me, but I remember that at some point in time, they actually put a notice in the news saying that they had fixed the issue with the newest update. But I might just be imagining things here. As you awaken the LR Broly trio from SSR to TUR to LR, the names of the passives change to reflect the character's motivations. In their SSR form, Broly fights for his life. In their TUR, Broly fights for his father. And in their LR state, Broly fights for his friends. And talking about the LR physical Broly trio, their best linking partner is Hearts, which is honestly a fun fact in itself. Like, they share 6 links together. How is that even possible? Those two cards are literally worlds apart, bro, worlds apart. I'm pretty sure they don't even share a single team together. The fact that they share 6 links together is just crazy. Vegeta is probably the most shafted card in Dokkan history. I could go on and on about all of the shafts the Prince of All Saiyans endured, but we would be here all night, so I'll just go over the ones most people probably never heard of. Strength's % Blue Vegeta on release was just a worse version of HL's % Blue Goku in pretty much every metric imaginable. He had a worse leader skill, since defense didn't mean anything at the time, had a worse base attack stat, and most importantly, had a way worse damage multiplier, which is crazy because the guy dropped a week after Goku. So knowing gacha games and the fact that Toshi was the producer of Dokkan at the time, you would assume that he would have been better than Goku, but for some reason he wasn't. Strength GT's % for Vegeta didn't have over enough flash when all of his Goku counterparts did. But the crazy part is that not only did they shaft him on release when over enough flash was pretty much the best key link in the game, they also shafted him when he got his Dokkan Awakening, because that guy got his Dokkan Awakening alongside the release of Super Sentry Bardock, who introduced the Super Sentry category, a category that, as you would guess, was solely based on the over in a flash key link. Man, did they do him dirty. In Vegeta, that came with Physical Kid Buu, was completely shafted due to his type on release. Like, there was no Nuken in-type leader at the time, and Physical Kid Buu's Dokkan Event's final stage was, well, physical. While his Goku counterpart was not only strength, but also had a better damage multiplier for some reason. HL Gogeta Blue was the first unit ever to have crits, dodge, and additionals all at once at 55%. Crit and dodge from his passive, and additionals from the hidden potential system. The free-to-play Metal Coolers, and now the Rose Clones, are the only characters to have typing in their names. No other unit in the game has types in their name, at least for now. Tien, Yamcha, Chaozu, Hercule, and Videl are the only characters in game to have a card in each rarity, going from N to LR, and probably forever, since I don't see them releasing more N characters in the future, or giving an LR to a unit like Kui. But if they do, I guess Kui will be added to that list. Cell Jr. too, if they ever decide to give Cell Jr.'s an SR. The last premium SR to release was SR Super Saiyan GT Trunks, who came out during the 4th year anniversary. That guy was surprisingly not bad for an SR at the time, but even then, SRs were just unusable unless they had something really special, like the SR Ox King, who could stack defense, making him an actual viable option in the Legendary Goku event. AGL Golden Frieza is possibly the best agent unit in the whole history of the game. He released back in 2016 and is still viable even to this day, thanks to his insane 90% damage reduction. Another fun fact about him, but if you run 2 Kid Gokus on rotation with him, he can get up to 100% damage reduction, making him invincible. SR Tech Jaco and In Chaozu's passives used to be worded incorrectly, saying that they may have a chance of stunning all enemies. This has been corrected since the big Dokkan 2 update, and their passives now represent what they were always doing, stunning all enemies once only on their first appearance. So yeah, they're very useful in SBR or even the World Tournament. The longest piece of animation text in the game belongs to the Int LR Shadow Dragons. It's 134 characters long. There is an SR Raditz that increases the enemy's attack by 20%. Like, that's crazy. This is the only unit that actually buffs an enemy. Well, if you exclude domains. Like, this is pretty much the closest thing we had to domains before domains. Our final showdown Goku is the only character to Dokkan Awaken into a different type exclusively on Global. He goes from Tech to AGL back to Tech. The Gammas, Int, Spirit Sword of Hope Trunks, Tech Merge Zamasu, AGL Super Vegito, and Physical Broly are the only Dokkan Fest units in Dokkan's history to share their initial Dokkan Fest banners with another new Dokkan Fest, instead of it being a dual Dokkan Fest. So this is the end of the video. If you've got even more fun facts about Dokkan, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. I would love to hear them. But until then, take care. Peace.